I rise today in opposition to this destructive bill. This bill undermines bedrock environmental and public land management laws in order to create a perpetual lease for a foreign-owned toxic mine. This mine will be on the doorstep of one of our country's last truly wild places, the Boundary Waters Canoe Area Wilderness. The Boundary Waters contains 1.1 million acres of unspoiled woodlands and more than 1,000 pristine lakes. The water wilderness is beloved by adventurers, canoers, sportsmen and sportswomen from all across the United States and around the world. To safeguard this natural treasure, Congress has prohibited logging, mining, and even the use of most motorized vehicles on this federal land. It has made the Boundary Waters a haven for birds and other wildlife, the most visited wilderness area in the United States of America. These visitors, over 250,000 annually, have helped the economy and created jobs in northern Minnesota. But the bill we're debating today puts this all at risk. It paves the way for a massive sulfide-ore copper mine just a few miles from the Boundary Waters Wilderness. Sulfide-ore mining is the most toxic industry in the United States. Sulfide mines pollute waterways with acid drainage, which contain arsenic, lead, mercury. This type of mining is particularly risky in the vast interconnected watershed that flows throughout the Boundary Waters, into Voyageurs National Park, and across the border into the Canadian Provincial Park. The supporters of 3905 claim that the bill simply protects the Boundary Waters because the mines will be located outside the wilderness area. Well, Mr. Speaker, this is simply not the case. Let me show you where the mining would take place here. This is the site of the proposed mine on the edge of a wilderness area. The river that you see flows through the Boundary Waters. The area contains popular Forest Service campgrounds and entry points to the wilderness. It's a base for scouting and veterans' outdoor recreation trips. Some of the Superior National Forest's most popular fishing lakes and hunting grounds are in this area. They are home to hundreds of people and businesses. If this bill passes, it will create an industrial wasteland. This bill will be an unacceptable risk and irreparable damage to a pristine wilderness. The 2012 study of American sulfide ore mines found that all mines had leaked. 92% of them had experienced failures that negatively affected the local water quality. Even state-of-the-art sulfide ore copper mines consistently polluted their surrounding environments. For example, August 2014, a copper mine in British Columbia released a toxic slurry, 10 billion liters of wastewater, 5 billion liters of tailings that created a polluted dystopia of dead trees and contaminated salmon spawning areas. Because of the risks involved with these mines, the Forest Service has begun a 2-year environmental review that will determine if the Boundary Waters is an appropriate place for dangerous sulfide or copper mining, or if a 20-year withdrawal of mining rights in the watershed is appropriate. This review is a process that Congress established under the Federal Land Policy Management Act for considering mineral withdrawal. The review is supported by Minnesota's governor, tribal governments, and 79% of all Minnesotans. It also has been supported by both the current and the former administration. Just this morning, again, I spoke with the chief of the U.S. Forest Service and thanked him for the administration's commitment to allow the study to go forward. But the bill we are considering today stops this established scientific review process from going forward. Instead, it creates a loophole for the benefit of a foreign mining interest. It automatically reinstates 2 expired and denied leasings dating back to 1966 before modern environmental laws like the Clean Water Act. It allows permanent mining leases on the national forest land on our nation's public land, removing scientific safeguards, environmental considerations, and public input from the renewal process. It exempts federal forests in Minnesota from the protections of the Landmarks and Equity Act. It sets a dangerous precedent and will have consequences all across our country. There is simply no justification for Congress to rewrite the rules for our federal forests in Minnesota. And that's exactly what this piece of legislation does. In short, this proposal is a giveaway of public resources to private interests. One of our nation's last wild places becomes collateral damage. Good people of both parties all across Minnesota and throughout this country know the importance of protecting this pristine wilderness. And that's why so many of them have submitted letters to Congress in opposition to H.R. 3905. And I will be entering into the record a few of those letters from Minnesota's Governor, Mark Dayton, 3 tribal nations, Fond du Lac, Grand Portage, and White Earth bands of the Minnesota Chippewa, the Theodore Roosevelt Conservation Partnership, the National Wildlife Federation, and other sporting groups, the Girl Scouts of Minnesota and Wisconsin, and Veterans for the Boundary Waters. A coalition of dozens of national organizations that advocate for clean water and public lands and conservation. And I urge all of my colleagues to join them, to join me in opposing this bill. And I thank the gentleman for California from the time, and Mr. Speaker, I yield back.